Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Flight Ready podcast. If you haven't seen episode 1, it means you've already got an hour of content in the bank ready to go. You're joined with me, MasterBen and LoudGuns.
Hello, how are you doing?
There he is. And today we're going to be talking about the desert island ship. So I'll let Loud go into a bit more detail as to what this is actually going to be talking about. So yeah, take it away, Loud.
So this was my pitch, and I thought it would be a good idea to get an idea of what was your first love in Star Citizen, the first ship which got you really into the game, got you hooked. What your current favourite is now. So which ship are you getting out of the hangar most? Are you enjoying the gameplay that's coming out from the most? And what's your concept king? So of all the ships which are yet to be developed fully and released into the game, which is the one that you are looking forward to the most? I'll kick this off by doing it with myself and MasterBen. But in the future, I do hope that we'll get other people onto this podcast as well, and that they can then also give us the desert island ships. I always thought about, do you remember Top Gear having sort of all of the fastest laps from the guests? I thought
That'd
it could
be
be
really
cool
cool
if we built a wall of people's desert island ships, and got everybody to give us their three. They came onto the show. So yeah, do you want to kick us off with your first love, Ben?
My first love. Well, it was back in '97. No, okay, hang on a minute.
First
We'll
love
go.
of
We'll go
Star
back to Star
Citizen
Citizen.
ships.
We're back in the room. We're back in the room. So, I kind of had some questions around my first love because there's sort of two. There's the first love of the concept of Star Citizen back in the Kickstarter days, where they started discussing a ship called the Starfarer, and I thought, this is the game for me. I can get a bunch of people. There's turrets. There's all these like fuel pods that need to be done. I was like, this sounds amazing. And I would say from that day, I was hooked to the idea of the game. And I'll come on to why I say idea later because I actually barely used the Starfarer. But for context, back then, the idea was you had to fly into gas giants and harvest the, believe it was hydrogen, it may have been quantum fuel, could be mistaken there. But it was just such a cool idea. It sounded so risky. And then you see the Starfarer in game, and it's like David Bowie will appear because this is the labyrinth at some point, but just it's not my love.
I remember trying to get to the bed on a Starfarer just to log out, and I was just trying to do a bed log, and I think I ended up just hitting escape and quit game. Like I gave up at a certain point. It's very much interesting as a ship that, I guess because it came in before it had the purpose for which it was designed. The refueling gameplay followed after the Starfarer had already been put in, and they very much seem to develop the Starfarer as an FPS map.
100%.
And that is a confusing thing for a ship. One which I would love to see the rework on, though. There is a lot of gameplay that it should feed into quite nicely. With, they've mentioned refining, and obviously as we go further into systems which are bigger, actual refueling gameplay is going to become important. Crazy. But then,
imagine that.
Then we're going to need a ship which has actually got the utility to do all that. But reworks sadly do seem quite far down the CIG list of things to do, though, don't they?
Yeah, it definitely feels like I would just like more ships right now instead of reworking the ones we have. But, we'll come to that day. So the Starfarer was what got me into Star Citizen. It's not what retained me. So the ship that actually retained me was back in 3.14. So I actually joined sort of only the last 5 years or so to the game. Was the C2. So a bit of a curveball because all I do is PvP. So I thought I'd just confuse you to start off the evening. Why the C2? Well, it was the exact reason why I loved Elite Dangerous, but with friends now. And I don't mean, sitting in a seat locked there with one power pip in whatever it's called, like winged mode. Terrible. The C2 allowed me to go get some tanks, put them in the back, fly down to the planet, shoot nothing because nothing matters and there's nothing there, and then be like, this is amazing, and leave.
But if you get 4 C2s, you fill them all with tanks, and you fly them down to a planet's surface, you can shoot the other tanks.
Exactly.
So
And you
yeah,
suddenly have a great evening ahead of you, and you're good to go. So the ship was the tool that actually let me enjoy Star Citizen. I think also, and I really hope they mend this, but back in 314, it was so loud. So, especially when the doors would be opening, when all the pistons would be happening, the hydraulics would be running, it was just the loudest ship going, and it was so like the sound of it's amazing. If you haven't done this, seriously, go get the ship, put it somewhere, and just open the doors because you'll be blown away by how good the sound is.
yeah.
And then it gets old like everything in the game, but C2 loved it. I did then refund it because I thought the game wasn't working, but then I got it back again, and we're here now.
That's fair. For anyone who doesn't know, though, of course, you are a World of Tanks enthusiast, to say the least, aren't you? So
Yeah,
you
I
just
am.
found a way
Yeah,
to turn Star Citizen into World of Tanks.
yeah. I
C2 was
basically
the
I went
ship that
from
let you do it. That's the key.
I went from free to play to well, it's not free to play. That is for sure. But it feels cheaper than What a Tank somehow. We never saw that one coming. So, how about you? What is your first love that got you into the game?
So my first ship was an
Ship. Sorry.
Origin 325A. It wasn't my first love. It was ages ago. I think I pledged for Star Citizen in 2014. It was quite far back,
Mm,
and but this was very much in the days where it was like looking at the. I think it was after the Kickstarter, but it was the early days of them having a website doing their crowdfunding thing. And I remember just looking at it with a few friends. I think one of my mates got an Aurora, one got an Avenger Titan. I got the 325A just because I thought it looked cool. And then we all promptly sort of forgot about this game for quite a long time. And every time I remembered it, I didn't have a PC good enough to run it. So it was always that sort of balancing act of either just playing other stuff or not having the hardware. But then got really into it at the sort of tail end of 2019. I want to say. I think it was about patch 311 or 312, and it was just around IAE. So during that time, I around did a bunch of stuff, got into some of the game loops, and I upgraded that into a Drake Cutlass Black, which is very
nice.
much my first love because it was me and one friend. We rented one. We got a rock mining buggy, stuck that in the back, and I think since we were coming straight off the back of playing Elite Dangerous, it was like that first point that we flew down to Ariel in a ship that we had like boarded at a station and got on together, sat in the various seats of, could actually move around. And then it was that first moment that we landed on Ariel and we dropped the back ramp. And it was like, you are on a high fidelity moon with us. I think it was like a sunset or a sunrise over the planet, the moon's surface. And yeah, that was the back ramp of the Cutty Black was the first moment of getting blown away by Star Citizen with that opening. But then it is a ship which has just I upgraded to an IAE one. I got the fancy skin, the 2949 skin, which is
Oh yeah.
one of my prized possessions in the game. And that ship just is never going anywhere. That is just always going to be there in my hangar. I just think the Cutty is just a brilliant sort of early game ship that you then use. I use it regularly. I just use it as my daily driver, just for getting from A to B. Can carry a bit of cargo, move my gear, move the occasional small vehicle, and you can just do a bit of everything in it. Holds up pretty well in combat. Like it's not anything exceptional, but particularly if you get that turret seat filled, it does hold its own. You can do quite a lot of different gameplay loops within the same ship. That tractor beam they've put on it now is particularly good. Not brilliantly positioned, but it still does the job. So yeah, the Cutty Black is very definitely my first love in the game. But yeah, if we move on from there though to what's your current favorite now? Like what ship is getting the most either the most use or the most enjoyment out of the game for you?
So I very nearly said for C1. In fact, actually, just before we started, I changed this. So I was going to say the C1 because it enabled me to do the bits of the game I enjoy. I do a lot of PvP either on the ground or sky space. You want something with a size 2 drive that can get you around. Now that the Ion's entirely dead again, it was so great for having a size 2 drive. But one day the Ion will be back and I'll say it in a podcast. But until then, it's dead. Um, but I pivoted. We've changed here because I forgot a teeny tiny little other ship came out just at the end of the year, which may be a little bit more interesting for my playstyle. Called a Polaris. I'm sure no one's heard of it in recent time. Yeah, it's a
It's
niche.
ringing a bell.
Um,
Yeah, very niche.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's only a grand or something.
Solo ship, right?
Yeah, solo. Yeah,
Right.
it's a starter package, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, 6 months insurance. God, could you imagine the bill when that thing blows up with insurance?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Livid.
don't want to think about it.
Yeah, no, not at all. Um, the Polaris is utterly incredible because it finally enables properly large PvP engagements or fleet-based battles. And before now, we were using like a hammerhead. And a hammerhead is a nice idea, but it's just a flak machine. It's not a lead ship. It should sit next to a Polaris, but you could argue it doesn't even need that. Um, just from a pure enjoyment point of view, like being in Frontier, being able to get tons of people into the same server. We had about 10 to 20 people just loading up Furies one night into that ship. And it is genuinely comical when you realize how much firepower you can pack into this thing. Granted, at the time, if a missile hit you, the interior would detonate.
Yeah.
So that made things a bit interesting. The Furies didn't get far. And when they did get far, the server would 30k. So either way, you lose. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, have you had much hands-on experience with the Polaris?
So yeah, a couple of nights particularly. Sort of I did one with Johnny where he led a take the Idris
Mm,
evening with one of the events that was running recently, and having it felt like a proper ship because I
yeah,
get what you mean. The Hammerhead is plus more turrets, but it doesn't feel all that different. I remember I think it was John Crew a while back termed it as a big canoe. The risk that if they implemented capital ships without updating systems and game mechanics, that they could just end up feeling like bigger and bigger and bigger canoes.
yeah,
And that is kind of how the Hammerhead feels to me. And I'm sure that like once it's actually filling its purpose in the game, the Hammerhead's probably gonna feel like a cool ship. But right now it feels not all that different to a Vanguard. It's just got 6 turrets, not one. So it, it's fun, but it's not the same. Whereas the Polaris, it was really cool having because we had like the boarding team with the hangar bay full of dragonflies, and we'd stacked up all of our gear in the boarding in that hangar. But then the ship was also fully turreted, had people on the missile control. I'm sure once you add in sort of engineering to that mix as well, when it comes, that's going to feel even more alive as a ship. But it was just so cool seeing about like 20 people sort of running around a ship without it feeling like a clown car.
yeah.
Like it felt like it was meant to have 20 people on it very comfortably. And that was really quite different and makes you really look forward to, Idris's, Krakens, Bengals. Because yeah, if they can make sort of a Polaris size thing feel that way, then yeah, I'm just looking forward to what's to come with it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, at the time when it first came out, CIG took quite a lot of flack, especially for the interior of the ship. People said it looked unfinished, it looked quite bare. To be honest, I mean, it's never bothered me because it's meant to be, it's meant to be a combat ship, right? Why are you
Mhm.
going to put paintings up on the wall? I, I would say, I think a lot of recent ships have started to show the limitation of what can you put into this game. If you're not going to put physical pipes or physical wiring looms, I'm not saying they should at all. Let's not
No,
slow
no.
down any of the development. just the bunks, for example. Why on earth is everyone? Why on earth is there two to a room with an ensuite in a combat ship? Seems a
Mhm.
bit odd, but it's like it's minor things. It's minor things around there which could be changed. My only gripe right now with the Polaris, or the primary one, is to do with some of the size 6 fixed weapons, which will have very limited ammo and no way to rearm them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like you have your big guns at the front, and they're usually out within 45, 60 seconds of firing, if constant firing in a fight. So it's not perfect, but it's a great sign of what orgs can do when they get together and when they sort of go into a scenario together. And if you're not in an org, or you've never found even just a group to play with for one night, absolutely just go and find a group running any big ships. The Polaris is probably the best example right now. And I guarantee you'll see a totally different side to Star Citizen, compared to just playing solo. Not saying playing solo is bad, but it's a whole different game when you've got,
yeah.
sort of huge torpedoes flying by, people taking off from the hangar, or respawning in the beds and getting new gear and being deployed out. It's utterly insane, and it's just perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and it's I would say it's Star Citizen's strongest selling point. The multi crew aspect, the multiplayer aspect. I agree with you. I think Star Citizen is a perfectly fine game to play to play solo. It's it's okay to good, and it's very pretty. A lot of the game systems are enjoyable, but it's not special as a solo play game. Because not saying it's bad, but I'm saying there are plenty of other games that can offer similar, if not more developed, better experiences. But what Star Citizen does do quite differently is the multiplayer aspect. The sheer amount of people that you can get into small spaces together and you can go and do things together is really what makes it incredible, and that's the difference for a lot of people, which makes them then stick around longer than they would if they were just solo grinding. So, and of course,
Yeah.
shameless self promotion. If you would like to get involved with an org or a community, our Discord link will be down in the video description below. Always got to find a way to shoehorn that in there. So
I think that was smooth. I don't think anyone will notice. It
no,
was
no,
a
no, no.
subtle,
That was
subtle.
subtle.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'm somehow imagining a star wipe as an org picture appears here, but we'll see. So I've told you my teeny tiny starter ship, current favorite in the game. What is yours, Mister Guns?
Brilliant thing is, I've got a teeny tiny starter ship. It's not quite a starter ship. It is, I guess, what you would term advanced starter territory, or profession starter, however you want to term it. But I'm gonna go with the Misk Hull A, which is,
Okay.
yeah, surprised me too. Don't worry. So recently I have been on the I made the new player guide quite recently, and I want to, because it's 4.0, we're into new patch territory. I'm starting to think about refreshing lots of the guides that I've done, because it's like the fourth bridge here in Edinburgh. You sort of finish painting, the guy gets to one end painting it and then has to just drive back across and start again. Because Star Citizen just changes and you have to keep refreshing these guides. And one of the ones which wasn't really a thing back when I did the last cycle of guides was hauling missions. But actually, hauling missions, to my surprise as much as anyone else's, I have found it incredibly fun. And having said that Star Citizen comes really alive when you talk about multiplayer, hauling missions are currently my go-to chill out solo thing. And you can do sort of really there's great depth to the hauling missions, great variety. Sometimes too much variety. One of my key criticisms of the hauling missions at the moment is once you get your rep up, you end up with like bounties like 20 contracts, mercenary 15 contracts, hauling 215 contracts. It's just like you have to scroll through them all to try and work out the ones you want. But the ones I find actually the most enjoyable are like chaining together numerous multi-drop missions around a certain planet. So you're like picking up a bunch of cargo at Seraphim Station, and then you're dropping it. Sorry, Seraphim was a really bad example. Port Tressler is a better example because the Microtech's an actual planet. But like then you're doing all these like short haul hops between like the different distribution centers and stuff. And I've been experimenting with like quite a lot of smaller cargo ships for those types of missions because they're actually very good money and they're very good rep grind. But the Hull A is probably the standout one for me. I almost said the C1 as well. The C1 is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
other contender to the crown for this. But the Hull A's external cargo, like all this time, sort of we've before cargo was really physicalized and before hauling missions, the whole concept of like external internal cargo didn't really matter all that much. But now that you're actually like taking these things off, putting them on the grids, sending the freight elevators down, there is a fair degree of like sorting your cargo that goes into, if you want to chain the missions, you want to sort of put the cargo that's like put it into stops as opposed to splitting it up by missions. And having external cargo grids really helps with that, and really helps with the speed at which you can get the cargo on and off the ship. So actually, this is starting to make quite a difference. I really want to say the whole sea as well, because I have been enjoying space trucking, like proper space trucking. The one thing which holds me off the whole sea is, do you see those like external cargo elevators that they teased in one of the
Oh yeah.
ISCs? So like when that is a thing, then I will be all about whole sea trucking.
Yeah.
But I want to get a crew together and I want to use all of those tractor beams to like actually unload my whole sea. I don't want to just fly into a magic box and then hope it works, because it is probably one of the buggiest things I've found in Star Citizen recently. Whole sea unloading.
It's
But
always
yeah,
a joy when you're told to sit in a random box and it just says, "Please wait." It's
please
like,
wait,
for what? Yeah.
please wait,
That's it.
please
Just
wait
just
again.
wait.
Commencing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when they showed off the was it in Nix, the station Nix, they had
Oh,
the track
the new like
plates, and
Levski Delamar.
that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean those the concept of, I mean, it's not even concept. I mean, they're in Pyro as well. We can see the artists there, so that's going to be a really cool addition. I always remember the Hull E concept photo, and it was just like ships flying up to it with little crates to like attach on before it sends off.
Hmm.
Almost this idea that the space truck never stops. You come to it and put things on and take stuff off quickly. That was never really going to happen, but it was such a cool
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
So
I don't know.
the whole series is just
It's one of the things which I like. A while ago, I need to do a new episode of it, but I did a number of these getting organized ones where it was like building orgs with a different focus and purpose.
yeah.
And I do still think that sometime in Star Citizen's far future, we're going to have an entire org that is built around being the best stevedorian guild that there has ever been seen. Because if you're into something like Hull D or Hull E territory, the amount of money that you would be putting into like a cargo run or like time, energy, resources, the amount of fee you would probably be willing to pay if you're like auto unload time, I can imagine is going to be something into the hours as
You
opposed to
think
the
so?
minutes. You would think it would have to be in order to stop it just breaking the economy. So then, if you're the stevedoring guild who can get a Hull E unloaded in 50% of the time that it takes to auto unload, that's going to be some big money there. Like I
That's
reckon.
pretty attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know from our Logi guys that there's a good few people who just really enjoy playing with tractor beams and any form of tractor beam equipped ship. So
I
it could
I
be a
don't get
thing.
it. It's just, I'm glad people enjoy it because we all need stuff unloaded. But good lord, tractor beams are either quite fun or painful just to watch things fall through the hangers right now. The floor is sort of slimy. It's good for humans. For boxes,
Yeah.
no bueno.
Did try, yeah. Hanger floors are a bit of an odd one. I tried ahead of the org birthday setting up a go karting track in my
Oh
hangar.
yeah.
So I got a load of like 32 SEU boxes, moved them around. Me and Sniggy had like positioned them into something resembling a go kart track. And then we slowly watched as they just slowly turned on the spot. And it's like, even if you sort of go and just park an STV on a hangar floor, it's like going at 0 point something meters per second without
Yeah.
you touching anything. So yeah, hangar floors might need some work. So
The pyro poltergeist will take us
that
away.
is that is probably it. Yeah,
Yeah.
haunted
All of them
hangars,
point to pyro.
almost certainly. So our final official one for Desert Island Discs, I've got Desert Island Ships. That Desert Island Discs is where we stole the name from. Is Concept King of everything that is still to be released, still in development, still in that famous concepting phase. What's the unreleased ship that you are on the lookout for the most?
I could be really cheaty here and just say Idris because it's probably the ship I'm most looking forward to. However, I won't because it's so ungodly close at this point. It's sort of people have seen it in game, which is my logic
Mhm.
why I'm not saying it because we've actually seen it and played with it. So we'll ignore that for now. I'm going proper. Nothing's done about it. It's not going to happen for like 5 years concept. And this is the one I said to you before. It feels a bit rogue. I'm going to steam a Nautilus, right?
Oof.
you know, that 70 like odd meter mine layer in a game about moving quickly through space seems utterly stupid in every single way. And I absolutely love it more than anything. So it's got to be the Nautilus. I absolutely love it.
It does have just
Why?
an incredibly cool profile. I will give you that. Just in terms of how a ship looks, and people forget about this ship all the time. So
Yeah,
I would recommend, just if you're forgetting even what we're talking about, just head to the website and take a look at the concept images, or even better, take a look at Star Jump's Fleet Viewer to get that 3D model up, because it is a cool looking ship.
it's amazing. And they have this incredible photo of all the decks of the Nautilus in like a mesh or a sort of a I don't know. They've taken the lid off the Nautilus and you can see all the way through it, and it looks absolute like there's no wasted space, which I don't mind, but I prefer when a ship is like actually fleshed out because like why isn't something over there? Which is something the reason I actually didn't say the Pioneer was because the whole front of it just seems to be a big cube of nothing. Um, so anyway, I digress. Why did I say the Nautilus? The idea of laying some form of mines could be amazing. So it's actually sort of the game loop attached to the ship why I'm so excited. I think right now we have the example of contested zones. We have the known idea of space stations. And then if we move slightly further on, we also get the idea of the planetary orbital defense systems they're talking about for 1.0. But I think we're a little bit further down the line for that one. Um, if you can hold a location without having to always be there, or at least buy yourself some time, or even better, gain knowledge through having a mind trigger to then know where someone's coming from, this is golden. This is so amazing. You've now suddenly taken a pilot out from having to be in a situation to allocate somewhere else, while you know, oh, mine, 4, 5, 6 is slowly being triggered. You know they're coming from this direction. It has question marks around the ship. How long will these last? How many can you lay? The answer to that, I think, is like 24, which in space is comically tiny. So there's like a lot of questions that need to be answered for it, which is why concept ships are wonderful videos because there's lots of
Yeah.
great questions which need to be answered. Um, but the best bit, after all this, you've laid your mines. You could just be having a bad day, right? Just drop 10 mines around you and see who's going to come near you. The best bit is it's got two size 7 cannons at the front. So if someone annoys you, you still have some vague defense.
Yeah.
And like, to me, that's great. And as I said, go look at the concept art. You'll see this hilarious photo of about 10 Nautiluses charging into battle, all firing off their front mounted guns. Like, why the hell is anyone doing this with their ship? But it's great. I love it. I love it. What's your opinions
Well,
on this ship?
but this is just the thing with CIG concept art, isn't it? It's like whatever the ship, there must be at least one concept image of it charging into battle.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I think the one that like rubbed me up the worst with that was was it the Liberator, the which to me is just like a ship
A
ferry.
flatbed.
Like, if you haven't seen like the Scottish Island ferries from like Calmac, it reminds me of one of those. Just sedate, just get your ships from A to B, but like they had to show those ships like doing a hot
Yeah,
drop landing. I'm like, anyone, regardless of their combat skill, could put the crosshairs on that target. You would not be landing those. But anyway, I
not
completely
done.
tangented. I think the Nautilus is a really interesting ship. Like you say, there are a lot of questions. But actually, sort of one of the things I think it will be really impactful for isn't even mine laying, but turret laying. So
Yes.
I think they mentioned that like it would have the facility to drop remote the I don't know what the term for them is, but the turrets which are dotted around space stations, so they're not like directly attached to a space station, but
Yeah,
they
it's
sort of
dual size ones
yeah.
on a little pod. Yeah.
So I would imagine, sort of particularly when we get into the world of space stations, that is going to be a critical ship for then additionally laying a perimeter. And I think it would be incredibly useful for, you know, eventually these space stations are going to be fortresses and they're going to built up, they're going to be covered in defenses. But there's going to be a point, right, where they are not, where they are at their most vulnerable, where you are bringing in tons of cargo ships just onto that first starting hub block. And you've already sunk tons of resource into this thing, but you're waiting for it to build.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think I would very much like a minefield around me and lots of remote turrets, like everywhere, please.
Mm.
Because it's particularly, I think, as we get sort of aspects of the game which force us into certain locations to commit to those certain locations, and then to run the risk that at that point where we're at our most vulnerable, we get jumped. Because in the current game, yeah, it would make no sense to have it.
Yeah.
There's
Pointless.
you know, you lay a minefield, somebody's gonna be like, well, I just won't go there. Like, I'll go over there. You're not using all that space, are you? Whereas when we get these objectives which force people to come to certain locations and into conflict with each other, then I think that's where it's gonna really shine. How you lay a three-dimensional minefield, that's the big issue. You know, mines on Earth are a proven weapon, but most of our battlefields are two-dimensional. They're flat. They're flat. So whether they're at sea or they're on the land, but yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how they pull it off. And yeah, I do think there is that fallback option as well of the turret deployment that
Yeah.
could really benefit the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has the joy of the concept is they can mold it in so many different ways. It could
Mhm.
all be changed. I think I cannot remember if this was mentioned in the Q&A for the Nautilus, but some form of scanner mines I think would be great for that. I just said getting the intel. You're dead right. Just having a
Mhm.
turret's great. Part of me wonders it's all going to come down to yeah, setting them up properly. That is going to be a nightmare. I cannot wait for the Discord calls of I'm 100 meters away. No, no, the wrong way. You go to like, oh, it's gonna be a pain in the neck.
Yeah, yeah.
And how often do we need to service this? And it could all fall apart. And one of the funny things I found is it's one of the only front-mounted bridges I actually like in the game. So
Mhm.
usually I hate them because you lose the idea of scale. The same with Elite Dangerous I found. Same with the Polaris even. You don't really realize. Sorry, I meant to say third lance, not Anaconda. That's got rear mounted. You don't really realize the size of the vessel you're in because obviously
You can't
you're
see
not there.
any part of it. Yeah.
You're in your living room looking at a monitor. That's
Mhm.
all you have. So yeah, you just need a bit more oomph to actually to visualize that space. but for some reason I like that one. Not sure why. Can't put any words to it, but it's
I
good.
think it just works with the profile of the ship. To be
Yeah,
fair, it's very much sort of centered around that. And I think if I was going to be spending a bit of my time driving through minefields that I just laid, I think I would want to be, you know, eyes on the
yeah.
ball right at the front of the ship myself. Make sure we're
Giant
going the
piece
right
of
way.
glass would be very, very, very appreciated. Yeah, I could
Mhm.
definitely go for that. But
Yeah,
anyway, enough about the best ship in the game, or not in the game just yet.
exactly.
What
Best
did-
ship
what have
not
you
in the
got as
game.
yours?
So I, considering we're two in, and I didn't say the Argo Mole was my first love, and I didn't say the Argo Mole was the
I
my
knew it was
current
coming.
favorite. Um, my concept king has got to be the RSI Orion. We've got
Yeah,
to get
I
a
knew
mining
you would
ship
say it.
into this somehow, and and I got two to choose from because we got the Arastra and we got the Orion. I'm a little bit disappointed. I'll be honest. One little gripe. A little bit disappointed that the RSI was the choice for both. I think there could have been sort of room for a different manufacturer
Mm.
in the mining space. Um, but that said,
So
I do think the Arastra is cool as well. But the Orion, it's been a ship I have wanted since really getting into this game and looking through all those lovely concept images as Star Citizen fans I want to do. I could not get over the idea of the Orion, particularly with so the thing I love about it is that it's just all integrated. So it is very much the type of ship I can imagine heading out into an asteroid field with a full view to keep that ship out there for days, weeks at a time. You know, the cycling crews in and out of it. So it's like the ship doesn't come home, you come out to the ship if you want to get on it. And you know, once it's out there, you can cycle a crew in while other members of your crew go to sleep. And I just love the idea of like coming back, maybe, you know, take a couple of days of real life and then come back and log in and wake up on my bed to find that like that Orion that I logged out on hasn't been back to a port in the meantime. And all that time we've just been crunching rocks, refining them. And you know, even if you get to a point where you've got cargo ships coming to meet you, to offload you and take those refined goods away. Plus, I'll be honest, I never thought I was that much of an RSI style fanboy. But then gradually over the years, that is exactly what I have become. And I do like that RSI is that sort of balance. I think MISC falls into a similar sort of role for me as well. It's that balance of um, industrial or combat, whatever they're focused on, but then also sort of a semi-realistic. These are industrial platforms designed for people to work on for long periods of time,
yeah,
and so therefore, a lot of people moaned about like the MISC. I'm gonna get the name of this wrong now. Starlancer.
short answer, yeah,
Starlancer. So they complained a lot about like the MISC Starlancers, like all the wasted space on the top floor. It's like
yeah.
why do we need a kitchen? Why do we need a pool table? Why do we need everybody to have their own individual bedroom? All of that sort of stuff. It's like, well, let's imagine like you had signed on, you know, people sign on to like cargo ships for like months at a time, sailing around the world, going to many different ports to offload many different Amazon goods. And you know, that is where you live for months at a time. So uh, I think it's quite realistic that they would build in pool tables and kitchens and give you each a bedroom so you don't end up strangling each other out in the darkness of space. Like it's, I'd imagine it would greatly reduce down the amount of deep space murder. So yeah, it's
You
like
think
I do
so?
quite like that sort of that RSI styling and the way that these like the latest look that we got at the grey box of it, it sort of had a lot of thought put into using some of the less used space to create good crew quarters, and I'm just really looking forward to it as a ship. Just going back to like one thing you said a while ago about sort of how sometimes people are complaining a bit about ships being a bit more bare bones. Do you think that's purposeful from CIG in terms of they're thinking ahead about we will end up customizing our ships?
So I really hope so. I that's that's what I have in the back of my mind. That's what I tell myself every IE. The best in show ships get nice posters. I think I've seen some posters in subscriber flares before and in the CitizenCon package. So to me, yes, that strikes me as what they could be doing. I, how do you go about this? Would you start making everything a grid? Do you start having some form of customization,
Well,
or
yeah, because they mention with the base building stuff.
yeah,
They talked about sort of how you did interior decoration mode, and it was sort of so you get the hollow view of what something's going to look like, and then it deploys straight out of the inventory, basically, to avoid the problem of sofa too big, can't fit through door. It's I wish in my real life I could get one of those. That would be very convenient. But then, yeah, it's like you probably do need to make a lot more of the surfaces effectively grids that you can snap stuff to. But that's already sort of started to a degree, hasn't it? Because I like just noticing recently, what more recently, I know it's been in for a while, that guns and things will individually snap to cargo grids
yeah.
and that sort of stuff. So do you just extend that grid all around a ship? I mean, you probably have to extend it up the walls if you want to sort of put stuff like posters up and things, but I don't know, might just go some way to explain why. Because I love the Carrack, for example, but
Mm.
like the Carrack has that very old school, they decorated it for you.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
got those
always
little
lived in.
touches like the teddy bear, like the glass of champagne, etc. But yeah. So I just wonder whether that is where they're going towards in terms of why these ships might seem a little bit more pared back in terms of internal decoration.
I I think that would definitely be the best case scenario. I truly don't think it's laziness. I know CIG said they put a lot of effort into the Polaris outer shell ready for Invictus, and then they said the inside. They're very honest at the time and said the inside has had basically no work on it because we wanted the outside to look good so it could fly around the verse. So I guess that's a nice sort of buyer beware. Always read the fine print. The inside's not done. Um, but you then still had 5 months to get the inside done. And I think the job was good enough. It does raise the question of, well, if the commanders' quarters weren't done, actually, was there a bigger plan to deck out the inside? So, for example, the Star Lancer has a pool table. The Polaris is meant to have a pool table, and yet it doesn't.
Doesn't have one.
Couldn't you couldn't you have just copy and pasted and changed the name? That would have been good.
We would
People
have
would
been
have been
okay with
very
the same
happy.
pool table. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, literally. I don't. It's just and it's funny because you read this sort of comments on Spectrum and go, this feels like it could have been a really easy mend, unless there was a larger plan to allow me to put a pool table in the future, which is
yeah.
would be so good. The idea that I could strip out the furniture that comes with it, just factory standard furniture, and then put in whatever I've pledged for, earned, hopefully found. That'd be more fun. And then I can make a nightclub in a Polaris. That'd be a goal. But
Exactly.
yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed they're not getting lazy. And I don't think they are, but I do agree. I think when you walk around the Carrack and especially the Nomad with all the protein powder on the side and all that, it's just everyone in the verse who owns a Nomad has all these protein drinks, and everyone who owns a Carrack never cleaned up the drone bay.
Yeah,
Come on, it'd
yeah,
be a bit more fun.
yeah. It's a little bit like it's one of the things I've always sort of thought about my reclaimer. Like I would
Yeah.
love to be able to get get down and start scrubbing some of those floors. Like some good old fashioned mop and bucket gameplay be most welcome for the Reclaimer, because I mean, I don't get me wrong, I do like the aliens vibe as a sort of ship to look at. I think it's cool. But as a ship which I spent a long time on doing salvage, I'm like, I would fix that light that keeps flickering at me, and yeah, I would definitely have a bit of a spruce up in here, if it were me, if it were actually mine and up to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not a fan of massive collab, like, crossovers of games. But I've seen there's a few games where you like clean up houses and like and then you flip them for more money. Could we have house flipper cleaning mechanics with the reclaimer, and we're golden?
That would be good. Yeah. You could probably sell on a cleaned up reclaimer for quite a bit more
It'd be
than a
so great.
reclaimer sells for, right?
That'd be amazing.
It's like yeah. So, and I think it's back to what you said on Nomad. It's like the idea that everybody's ship is the same is what they seem to be moving away from,
Yeah.
and so they want to give you those customization options. They want you to be able to make this one yours and it to be different from your friends, and people to notice the differences when they go on each other's ships. But like too much clutter from the artists, while that clutter like might make ships look livelier, that clutter is just going to get in the way of me doing my own decoration
Yeah.
on my ship. So, I mean, sort of, you'd hope at least that protein powder on the Nomad would be removable, but like, what if it's not? What if it's hard art that's in there that
Mm.
you can't touch? And so it's just like, really like to use that for my my little cactus that I got in the sub flare, but no. So we do have time for a bonus round. I've got a bonus
Oh,
round at the ready, which I've given Ben absolutely no preparation for. So since we have a little bit of time, favorite starter ship.
this is
Completely stumped him.
yeah,
He
yeah,
has no
because
favorite starter ship.
I have no favorite. I've
Polaris.
never used one. Yeah, I thought that was the start. I bought the carrot pack. I did
Yeah.
not. So favorite starter. I used a few because I at the time did a every starter in the game guide, and a lot of them have advantages and disadvantages. I would say the newer ones feel way more rounded. Like if you can afford the extra, some of them are like £10 for on discount. You really notice the difference. The Aurora and Mustang are struggling, but that wasn't the question. And I'm trying to buy time, so I think my favorite starter is, I think it's the Cutter. It's so I'm not a huge Drake fan normally. I've ridiculed Aegis multiple times for having exposed cables next to my feet in a cockpit where I'm going to be kicking pedals, and at one point will pull out the power of my MFD. Really good idea. But there's something about the Cutter which does absolutely everything you could possibly need on day one, I think. It's got a little bit of cool flair with the side metal, like, visors that open and close. They do nothing, and it's like my favorite bit of a ship that I can just
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, protect my sides. Cha-ching, done. Great. It's incredible." Um, the cargo bay is good enough. It's got a really cool ramp. Seriously, I think the key to a good ship is a good rear ramp. I don't read into that. If it's got a good noise and it's got
Don't
good
clip you out of
action,
context on that. Okay.
yeah,
Noted.
yeah.
Noted.
Well, that's a YouTube short. Damn it. But it's absolutely great for getting you around. I mean, I don't know if it still has the huge quantum fuel tanks. I think they may have removed that because at the time I think you
Its
could
range
cross.
is not what it was, but it's also
Okay,
still better than the likes of the Aurora Mustang, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that.
right. Yeah, but it gets you around the place, but also gives you the space to bring a friend along and actually go and do things. And this is what a starter ship should be. It should allow you to get some multiplayer in there, possibly get a vehicle in the back. I think you can get, what's the name of the little bike?
Well, you can get some of the bikes in, like the Pulse.
Yeah,
The Pulse will definitely fit.
Pulse. That's the one.
One of the things which I think is going to be quite massive about the cutter is the grab thing for base building, like small base building. You can get that in the back of a cutter,
Oh yeah.
so that would be pretty big. You can jam a rock mining buggy into the back of it. Done
Oh
that.
god.
But jam is the correct term, and that rear ramp that you're fond of does not close. But so it's a little bit ghetto, flying around with the ramp open and the two rear wheels of your rock binding buggy sticking out the back. But you can still rock mine in your cutter. So yeah, it's a good choice. I love the MFDs in it. Like all the
Yeah.
detail around that that shit benefited so much from coming out right next to the Corsair.
Yeah,
So
100%.
much work went into the Corsair, but then somebody at CIG was going like, could fit that in the cutter. That could get in the cutter.
That's gonna work.
We'll take that too. Not the like 7 guns or whatever, but because that's the one area it struggles a bit in, right?
Massively.
Like two size, they size twos or size ones on the
I
cutter,
want to say twos.
but you only get two of them.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Aurora and the Mustang, even you get 2 guns stock, but you can add 2 more. They both
Yeah.
have sort of 2 empty hard points, and that is quite a meaty difference in damage output. So yeah, that's the one drawback, yes, to the cutter. But
Yeah,
particularly for people who aren't really looking for jumping straight into combat, and also you run a couple of missions in your cutter, you can rent an actual combat ship. Like that's sort of the key sort of thing there.
it's always the it's always that funny bit, isn't it? Like, what's the best way to do combat in Star Citizen? Well, it's to not do combat until you've made enough money in one of the other loops, and then go into combat. But yeah, I think yeah, if you know combat, definitely avoid it as your starship. But otherwise, really good. But anyway, bonus round, which you actually had a chance to think about, which is very unfair.
yeah.
What is your choice?
I mean, so I completely get what you say about the Mustang and the Aurora suffering by comparison. Like the Cutter is a great example. The Intrepid I also think is a great example of,
I like it.
like, you
Yeah.
get so much ship for a starter ship. And I get what people say about it's a bit of an ugly duckling, but on the inside, that is like you. It's I would argue that is the best ship interior in a starter ship, short
Okay.
of the
Yeah.
Nomad. Short of the Nomad, I think the Nomad also has a very strong, but the Nomad is quite a bit more expensive. Like, it's
Yeah.
barely starter territory, whereas the Intrepid, you're getting quite a lot for quite a lot of bang for your buck. All that being said, Consolidated Outland Mustang Alpha for me. Like, I think there is something to be said for cheapest entry point. Now, obviously, I set no rules in this about having to be aware of price, but I do always sort of think that starting with the cheapest option is the best in terms of get into something like a Mustang or an Aurora. If you like the game, you'll like the game, and then go from there. Then if you get like hours of enjoyment out of it, then sure, like $20 extra for an upgrade to something like the Cutter, like the Avenger Titan, any of those ones. That's cool. You've ensured you've got your money's worth. But the thing which really gets me on the Mustang, that thing has an absolutely fantastic cockpit, just a fantastic view. And I think one of the things which will it's easy to forget when you've been playing like we have for like 5 years plus. It's really easy to forget like just how good looking this game is.
Yeah.
and it's probably the reason that, like, 'cause I think there's ultimately very little to pick from with an Aurora or a Mustang. If you're making the choice between just the two cheapest options, there's little on paper to choose between the two. But I think the thing which really swings the dial for me is that Mustang has just such a great view of everything that's going on around you. It's just, a clear bubble canopy. And yeah, sort of as a new player getting in your first ship, like being able to just really take it all in, it's is a big selling point for me. There we go. Like you say, I did have a bit more time to think about that. So
It's, the Mustang is I think it's a really cool ship. It's I totally get you on price. It's so nice when you show someone the game, and I think if you read in Star Citizen and you start hearing the bugs, it's quite easy to quickly go, "I'll give it some time." But at Christmas, when it's £35 in the UK, including local taxes, it's that is a good price for a game these days. And I think,
yeah,
especially with the introduction of Pyro, as long as you don't get some of the shocking bugs, which some people have been getting, you will get your money's worth if you're with a group of people. You
yeah,
absolutely will, or should do, should I say? So yeah, I do understand it,
yeah.
but it cut is better. No, I'm
But no,
joking.
yeah, and that's the thing about starter ships. To be fair, like particularly when you look at like I would pick out sort of the cutter, even though it's a bit old. It's the Avenger Titan has like probably the best stats in terms of just pure bang for
Yeah,
buck. Um, I think the Intrepid's really cool. I do think sort of those sorts of advanced starters where you're making that jump from like 40 to 60, $70. There's a lot of ships in that $60 to $70 range, which if you've already established that you really like this game, buying, the expansion that takes it to a normal AAA game price from, you know, a little over half of a AAA game price is justifiable, and you do actually get quite a bit of you get quite a lot of value, I would say,
yeah.
from that jump. So yeah, it's one of those things I've never wanted to recommend how anybody spend their money, and I've always been careful to say that if you want to know how much Star Citizen costs, don't read Kotaku articles about $10,000 and that sort of stuff. It costs $40
Mm.
because that is the price for a Mustang or an Aurora, and you get access to the same game as everybody else. Like, but then if you've proven you love it, then yeah, those sort of 20 extra dollar like price tags is actually quite a decent jump. So,
And it's funny because even when you buy the cheapest pack, if you do decide in the future to go find a group of friends to play with, I guarantee or almost guarantee that one of them will have pledged for something larger and will always say, "Hey, who wants to go on my insert large ship here and help crew it?" Because everyone has, not everyone, but lots of people have ships. So you suddenly have paid for lowest to get the enjoyment of other ships. You can grind for ships in game, unless they're under the weird, one patch lock, but that's fine, and still enjoy everything they're enjoying. And the best bit is, at the end of the mission, you don't pay the resupply cost, so you
there is
win
that.
every one. Yeah,
Yeah. It's just like if you want to fly a Polaris on day one of a new patch, pledge an Aurora.
yeah, literally do.
Because
They are.
yeah, it's absolutely the case. Right, I
The
did have
con-
another horrendous bonus round, but
oh,
we're sort of at the hour-ish mark. So you know what, I recommend we maybe keep that for a future episode of Flight Ready, and
okay.
we'll save it for the
We'll have to
future.
keep them in suspense. Maybe one day there'll be a quick fire of bonus rounds we didn't get to. That'd
It's
be interesting.
exactly, or we'll bonus round each other, so it's not just
Yeah.
me like blindsiding you. Right, but do you want to tell everybody where else they can find you on the internet, though, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on YouTube of MasterBen10 as on screen beneath my face, or on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MasterBen10, where I do a bit of painting, Warhammer, and Star Citizen, and other games like maybe Water Tanks is back. God, I hope not.
Oh, excellent.
How
I love the World
about
of
you,
Tank
Lav?
streams. You'll find me. I am LoudGuns on YouTube and on Twitch. I said in the last episode where I would be getting back into streaming on Twitch, and I haven't done it. But you know, it was only a couple of weeks, so we will be getting there. But yeah, I'm sure I will have made some things which will be pointing these things out above and below us. So please do head on over there and give us a like and a follow and a subscribe and all those things. And of course, this is a channel that we're really just trying to get going. It's been the org channel for a while, but we're trying to just put this slightly more regular content out. And I think it's quite exciting. Next time we're going to be doing a bit of a community call out, aren't we?
Yes.
So we're
Yeah.
going to be inviting people to call in. So we would be really appreciating it if you would subscribe to this channel. And also hop on into the Frontier Consolidated Discord, because that's where we will be arranging call-ins for the next episode, where the floor will be open to either give us your desert island ships or go back another episode and give us your view on the whole PvP PvE scenario. Or you know, if you use your 5 minutes or so really efficiently, you can probably give us both. Just have to talk at a certain rate of knots. So
I would I would absolutely love to see if someone can do all 4 rounds, including the bonus round, and build a valid argument on the PvE, PvP debate. That would be genuinely I would love to hear it with enough time for a response, I will add.
we're gonna get some sort of speed reading in
Yes.
this.
Yeah. I can't wait. It'd be amazing. Be
Oh, I'm
absolutely
looking
amazing.
forward to it.
And just to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched the first episode and wrote some comments. You know, it's been really lovely to read through and hear such a great feedback from the first episode. So yeah, a huge thank you. I'm sure.
Yeah,
See you in
thank
the
you
next
very
one.
much. And yeah, we'll see you next time.